Alright, so the Grotto early cycles. The most important thing I would say about doing it is how you line up the two different crusher cycles. So these crushers will spawn if you're running all skills no out of bounds. They'll spawn at some point when you're falling down uh, from the bridge cutscene. And I think if you're running all cells too, they'll spawn when you're sometime up there in that upper part of Moon Grotto. So basically, you land down here, and you want to run up to this wall, and then you want to wait for, I think how long it is. I'd say it's about half a second. A little bit more, maybe like 3/4 of a second. I just do it by feel, kind of, so I don't, but it's between half a second and a second. And that what that does is it gets these crushers, lets them progress through their cycle during that time. So you'll notice that when the crushers are moving, they're kind of like accelerating as they go, as they get closer together. So when the crushers are moving, like right about here when it starts to go back in, it's not moving very fast, so you don't want to be running along it at that point. You want to wait till it hits its maximum velocity, and then ideally you want to go from the left crusher to the right crusher pretty much right when they come together, because then they start to go away very quickly. So basically you want to be running or dashing along this crusher when it's at its fastest speeds moving to the right, and same with this crusher when it's on its fastest speeds moving to the right. Okay, so that's the most important part. The second most important part, this part isn't crucial, but I find it helps out a lot for consistency, is that you want to start your first dash back about as far as possible. Now, that may seem counterintuitive because the crusher, the vertical crushers up ahead have not spawned yet at this point, but you would think, like, since your movement speed in a dash is the highest at the beginning of it, you would think like you would want to start your first dash right before the crusher spawn. So I don't know exactly where they spawn. Let's say it's right here. You would think you would want to start your first dash like right here, right before it. So that way you have a higher average movement speed as you're after you've spawned these crushers. In theory, that is true, but in actual practical applications of doing the trick, I don't like to do it that way. The reason is because if you start it back here, you get, let's see, get the timing right. You'll notice that I'm ending the third dash like right here. And that's very important because this is like exactly where you want to jump. So if you were to do it the way I used to do it back in when I ran all cells and it was impossible, was my dash would end after hitting the wall, or I would hit the wall before my dash ends. So I'd have to time a jump out of the dash, and that's just no good because there's no way that you can consistently time that as a human. It's just too difficult. So also, the thing about running after you've ended the dash here is that you're still moving pretty fast because of this, the crushers moving to the right. So for consistency's sake, along the horizontal crushers, the two most important parts of it are waiting like half a second to a second here. You'll just have to get the feel for it. I don't even know what the actual timing is myself. When I do this later in the video, you can probably see it from there. And then the second part is starting the dash back from, I said as far back as possible here. You kind of want to like run up this. You kind of want to let go of the jump button when you're towards the top of this wall here, so that you don't vault over like this, because the momentum from the climb will carry you up the rest of the way. So I kind of try to let go of jump a little bit early, and then you'll notice how the terrain goes down in here, and then it starts to slope up here, kind of right in the middle of this mound type area is where I ideally want to start the first dash. So then once you've ended the third dash, like right here, and you can end it a little bit further left, it doesn't really matter. If you set up these crushers, these horizontal ones, with a good timing, then it's actually pretty lenient where you end the dash. You just kind of want to make sure that you're jumping so that you're not running with absolutely no dash movement on this. You want to jump at the very end of your dash, basically. And then you do 2 wall jumps, land here on this corner. So the way the terrain ramping works is if you start, let's see, it's like if you're way too far left, it doesn't work sometimes. If you're too far inward, then it won't work. So you kind of want to be like right on the corner here, but not, not way too far left like this. So just right about on this corner, and they'll give you the ramp over this crystal. What else? Oh, and this dash. So this dash, it is better to jump later rather than sooner out of this dash. Like you may want to jump early on in it, but you lose so much horizontal momentum during that it makes it a lot harder to get inside. You can actually do this full dash here, hit the wall of the crushers, and then jump after you've hit the wall, and you'll still make it in with a couple frames to spare. I think that's pretty much everything. The only thing left to note is that the closer you are to the wall here when you jump, the more optimal that actually is, because when you're doing these wall jumps, you're limited by the number of frames it takes Ori along the x-axis to get away from the wall and then back to it. So no matter what, you don't, like, let's say I do my first wall jump from here, you don't want to overshoot the ledge like this. You want to kind of land right on it. So if you see that this jump is very close to the wall, you want these jumps, you want to hold them out. Like, let go of jump for a very small amount of time when you're doing them. Not that small. You can see I'm kind of overshooting it here. And if you jump from like back here-ish, which is also okay, then you kind of want to let go of the jumps for a couple more frames than you would if you had jumped closer. So I think that's all the cues I use, and it's just a matter of putting everything together. You can see, like, as I'm going through the crusher there, the crusher's like almost at the bottom. That's all because of this setup, lining up these 2 cycles in a way that's more forgiving. I think in the task, because the task obviously doesn't wait here at all. The task just goes straight on ahead to spawn these crushers as early as possible. The task gets in with a lot less leeway than we can in RTA, but that's because it doesn't waste the half a second or whatever here waiting. So there, I hit the wall, still got in anyway. As you can see, it's not a very difficult trick by any means. As for practicing it, I actually have two saves that I use to practice it. This one, I'll show you. Let's see. I think I have these backed up. So. Yeah, I do. I spend more time practicing it on this save down here than I do on my other save. My other save is up here. The thing about this save is that, so this one will help you get a better feel for how long you have to wait up against this small ledge here. But you can't reload this save. You have to die in order for it to work properly, so this cutscene ends and then I debug load the save. Oh, that didn't, let's see. That worked for some reason, I'm not sure why. I don't know why it's working, it's not supposed to work. Okay, for some reason it's working, but normally when I do this, Ori just stays perpetually skydiving here. So to make the other save, the closer one, which I highly recommend, like, it might make the timing off a little bit, but you can practice it much quicker that way. I would practice it both ways, but I make this just by, I start to run forward, and then I pause while Or's running forward, then I save. Then when I load it, I just hit right immediately after. So that'll make you have to wait a little bit less here, because, so you'll see that since I loaded with neutral inputs, I stopped moving for a second, so the timing here changes a little bit, but I would still practice it both ways, just because it helps you develop muscle memory for the precise timings of, like, the rhythms of the different inputs that you have to have, if you can just load a state and then start doing it immediately. And after you get a feel for the... Oh, I also forgot to mention, all three of these dashes need to be buffered. Like, you have a huge frame window to buffer dashes with each other. So, like, if you can hear the way I'm doing it, like, I'm inputting the dashes way in advance, and that's just so that they get a frame perfect on the first frame that they can be on. What else? There's one more thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, once you get the rhythms of, like, the 3 dashes and then the jumps and stuff, then I would go back to... Then I would go back up to this save, practice it from here a little bit, get the timing down, and then... But I would still do the majority of the practice from the save down at the bottom of Grotto. But yeah, that's Grotto early cycles. Good luck.